Hello, and we are live. Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, podcast listeners, and welcome to another LinkedIn Live from Tribal Impact. And today I am really excited because we're going to be digging into employee advocacy at IBM. And I feel like this is a bit of an IBM reunion because I used to work for IBM. Donna behind the scenes used to work for IBM. And now we have Nada Alkutbi from IBM coming to talk about it as well. So hello, Nada.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
That's all right. And we know Nada anyway from our event earlier in May this year. Hello, David. So we've already getting people waving and saying hello in the comments. So Nada came to our event in May earlier this year and talking about the power of employee advocacy. And it was just brilliant. And some of the structure she went through, some of the ideas that they do, how they test it, how they measure it. So we thought it'd be a great idea just to invite Nada back for all of those that couldn't make it to our event on the day. And we're going to ask some questions. And it's a great opportunity as well for you to ask some questions as well. So Nada, I think what we'll do is we'll get started by just if you can just introduce who you are, where you're located, your role at IBM, just to set the scene so folks know a bit more about you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. And I've been really excited and looking forward to this session. So thank you so much for having me. So my name is Nada Alkutbi. I'm a geo-social media lead at IBM. I am based in London in the UK, but I actually have a global role. I have been at IBM coming up to 12 years. Since I joined the graduate scheme. I've had a variety of different roles, but the majority of my career has been in digital and social media marketing. So my current role, geo social media lead. So geo is geography. I cover all kind of key markets and countries globally. And the focus of my role is to support the teams with their social media strategies. So we cover all things social, own social, paid, organic, external influencers, employer advocacy, CX, social listening, reporting. So everything social media related. We help them improve their ROI, and we'll provide them with guidance and direction and kind of take the global social strategy and share that with the local markets. And so, so really lucky to be in this role. Absolutely love my role and my job. Love working in social media. And my favorite thing is working with people all over the world and learning from such talented and creative individuals.
Oh, it's fab. Wow. What an amazing role. I mean, we talk a lot at Tribal about sort of connecting the dots between all those individual social touch points, earned, paid, and influencers and advocacy. It's amazing that you're actually living the dream that most of our customers would love to get to. So thank you for giving us that. But you did touch on employee advocacy, and that's the theme of today's session. So I just wanted to dig a little bit more into that in the context of IBM, because we're not going to dig into any of the other things. But why is that so important as part of that program? And do you call it employee advocacy? Because there's two questions there. Is that how you address it internally, or and why is it so important to the whole social strategy?
Yeah, we do. We do call it employer advocacy. I think at some point we used to call it like internal influencers. I think that got a bit confusing. So we'd kind of refer to external influencers as external influencers, and then employer advocacy, like our advocates, as part of our employer advocacy program and strategy. And so the way we define employer advocacy is when an IBMer leverages their voice and their external eminence to amplify and champion IBM, our products, our solutions through the personal social channels. And the result is authentic thought leadership from a subject matter expert. And we know that advocacy or advocates help us humanize the IBM brand. And they put a face and kind of name to the culture within the brand. And I think we've spoken about this before, like anybody could be an advocate, regardless of what their title and how many followers they have. It's important because we know people trust people. We know that the data shows 20 to 50% of all purchasing decisions are made by peer-to-peer marketing, and 65% of employees that participate in advocacy programs say that advocacy efforts help them start or create business opportunities for them. But I think there are benefits for the individuals as well, which is obviously important. So it helps them deepen relationships with their clients and partners, expand their network, and also position themselves as thought leaders. And I think that's really important for everybody to invest in building their own personal brand.
I love that. And you're what you're doing there is you're recognizing, yes, there is benefit for the brand because it humanizes the brand voice. It provides a channel for increased amplification, but it isn't just about that. It works the other way as well. And actually employees building their own. I love you're the only person that I know that uses the word eminence actually. And I really like that. And I've seen you use that before and I've actually written it down because it is about the individual's personal brand as well and giving their brand value. Using the power of the IBM brand to support and enable and encourage employees to build their personal brand, it works both ways. I love that. So who else we got? Mohammed, please, thank you for giving us a bit of a shout out. If you've got any questions for Nada, just pop them in the chat. I have lots and I can definitely ask all of those, but this is a great opportunity for you to speak to Nada about how they do it at IBM. So you just communicate that brilliantly. Now, when we were at the event in May, you talked about this 3-tier approach. I remember seeing the graph and I was like, that is genius, actually. It's very clear. And you talked about how you support them, how you spot an advocate, and then how you move them through almost like levels. Can you, for those that weren't at the event, can you just give us a bit of a try and visualize it for us, but in words, please?
So the 3-tier approach came about because we simply can't offer everyone one-to-one support. And so what we do is we then segment IBMers into different tiers and offer them different levels of support. So if you imagine like a pyramid, and so top of the pyramid is like tier 1. So this group we'd refer to as like white glove service. So this group would be primarily made up of our executives and senior leadership team. And what's important here is for marketing and comms to really come together and work together to support our execs and leadership team with their social media strategies based on their visibility plans and their social media goals. Tier 2, so kind of like the middle of the pyramid, this group is mainly made up of our influencers. So those advocates who are doing social media well, are socially active, they're influential, and might just need a bit of kind of continue to nurture them and to continue to coach them and include them in an advocacy program. So usually this group is made up of our subject matter experts, sellers, and also like thought leaders, event speakers. And then tier 3, at the bottom of the kind of pyramid, is really anybody who wants to be an advocate or wants to build their social eminence and presence on social and is looking for like on-demand resources, like self-serve content for them to help them build their personal eminence.
It's brilliant. And for anyone, I've been just jotting that down. So for anyone that's, I'm sorry, podcast listeners, you can't see that. You'll have to go onto the LinkedIn Live, but that's what it kind of looks like. Do people move between the tiers then, Nada? I'm curious. Do you find that an employee becomes quite influential around a certain topic and you think, oh, maybe we can move them into the next tier? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had people who have reached out and kind of said, I'm an expert in this topic and I'd love to build my personal eminence. Can I get some coaching and some support? And then and then realize actually you are our subject matter expert in this topic. We're going to help you improve your eminence, and therefore we're going to include you into like that second tier of be part of our employee advocacy program. If they're based in the UK, for example, they join the UK program, depending on where they are. So and then that content is tailored for them. So the content is in their local language, relevant for kind of what they're looking for on social. So yeah, absolutely. I think same thing with kind of our execs. Our execs are doing such a good job on social. They all see the value. They're dedicated. They want to improve their social eminence. And yeah, so it's just continuing to support those execs in their journeys.
And it is so important to get that top tier, right? Because they inspire, they encourage, they pull the others through. If you don't get that right, and IBM execs are stellar at this, and they were early adopters of this actually. They're one of those companies that were the first one to do it. So
they do, and I think there's so many examples, and I think they see the value and want to do it themselves. Like I think a lot of people are surprised and they think, well, the execs, they've got comms supporting them, and yes, they might have some support, but actually those doing it really well, most successful, are doing it themselves, like on their phones, self-serve. They dedicate the time to it as part of their day-to-day. And I think that's why they're successfully doing social media well.
Yeah, I'm going to go off track here. Sorry, Donna. But I think that you've touched on something there that I think is really important, which is leaders doing it for themselves, and encouraging that, because you couldn't have all your tens of thousands of employees all saying, "Can you manage my social channels for me?" You can't even do that for all your leaders. There's too many of them.
Yeah.
How do you get them to do it themselves? How do you do that?
Yeah, so really good question. I would start with the why. So I would always start by explaining, what's in it for them, but also why this is important for the brand. I would also share some examples of people who are doing it well to encourage them. So that could be examples for internally or externally. I would then also share some stats with them. Like, we know research and data shows people want to work for leaders who are socially active. And I think I find that usually works and encourages them. And then after that, I would then work with them to audit their profile. So I feel like you can't jump straight into creating content and being a thought leader if you like your profile isn't complete. So that's quite an important step. And then providing with some tips on how they can optimize their profiles, making sure they're complete. And then really kind of working with them on their visibility plan. So what do they want to be known for? And how they're going to kind of build out that content, really position themselves as thought leaders. And they can start by just listening and engaging with content in their feed until they're comfortable creating their own social posts, their own blogs. And then it's about encouraging them to also connect with people they meet at events. So a lot of them are at events, they're speaking at events. So building their connections and networks. And then it's also about sharing with them what our social media KPIs are. So what good looks like, how they can track and measure their performance over time. So that could be their increase in number of followers or their engagements per post, video views. So, what those KPIs are for social. But then having said that, I would also still encourage people to work with execs and people who see the value and want to get social. So focus on those who want to do it. Because it can't be forced. It has to come from them. We're there to support and coach, but they need to do it themselves and they need to want to do it.
Yeah, I love that. It's like baby steps, isn't it? Building confidence over time. Yes, question. I was going to ask that, Donna. And I can see you put it up here. Question for Nada. What are some of the challenges you faced when building up your program, your employee advocacy program?
Very good question. So I think in terms of challenges, I just want to say, so we've been through the journey, and we're still pretty much on that journey. And I think even though we've come a long way, there's a lot to be proud of. I still think there are loads of challenges and kind of areas for us to improve on. One particular challenge at the moment for me personally in my role is scaling and kind of standardizing our employee advocacy programs, because it feels like there are so many different programs managed by different people. And I think we could do with kind of bringing it all together, but also supporting the program owners with some resources and enablement that they can have and use, and also supporting our employees and execs in their journey.
Yeah.
So that's kind of probably the biggest challenge for me in my current role. And that's like a mission for me for the rest of the year, to try and like bring everything together. And I think some markets are better than others at doing this well, and have some really successful employee advocacy programs in place. Other regions aren't quite there yet. So kind of getting them up to speed, trying to scale, but at the same time, standardize the programs and approach.
Yeah, scale and standardize. Yeah, it's taking the best bits of what is working and sort of spreading that out elsewhere. Yeah. We have another one for you as well, Nada. Can you share more about how you got the execs to understand the value of advocacy aside from external research? I think you touched on that, didn't you? Sharing some examples. And another one, I don't know who you are, LinkedIn user, but another one is benchmarking against your peers in other companies. Execs quite like to see how they're doing against their peer roles elsewhere in competitive organizations or in the industry. But also be how you measure and demonstrate the impact. You touched a little bit on showing them how to track their performance, didn't you?
Yeah, and I think it's actually quite simple. So I would just encourage them to take a screenshot or make a note of how many followers they have today versus for me personally, I measure my own performance monthly or can be done quarterly. So and you can very quickly then see if I when I spoke at your event in May, I had a spike in my followers because those people were connecting with me. And then kind of my SSI score improved. And so it's just being able to track the data that we all know. So it's the number of followers, engagements per post, video views, and then just analyzing it. So then it's understanding what insight we can get from it, which content or campaign performed well and why. And so that way you're able to get insights, and the execs do this as well. So they'll measure, they'll analyze kind of the performance for their campaigns. And I think this is really important. We had one of our execs in EMEA did such a great job. So we had, she hosted clients at Wimbledon last year. Wimbledon is one of our key clients. And her post ended up outperforming our own social content from a branded perspective. So we went back and provided that feedback. So we said, look, your post did so well. It actually outperformed our own social content for the campaign. And that really encouraged her to come. So this year, her and her team came back saying, well, we know Wimbledon, this story performs really well for her audience. Let's do something about it. And again, this year, her post did exceptionally well. So I think it's important to track the data and understand which stories and campaigns and content performs well. I just have it literally in a box now, and every month I'll go and kind of and sometimes my followers do go down, and and then I think, well, actually I haven't really been that socially active. I haven't had an external speaking opportunity, but so I think it's just interesting to see, and I think don't get disheartened if it does go down or your SSI goes down, but I think it's just good to have that data and to try and understand the performance and track it over time. And over time, you're then able to say, okay, year on year, I grew my followers by 15%, which is amazing. And so I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. I would just to add to that, you can actually download your connections off LinkedIn. So you can also analyze, especially with executives and anyone in a sales role, you can very quickly see when you download it, you can analyze and see where your connections are clustered. And it could be that your execs are connected with lots of other execs at IBM, for example. I mean, I'm just using that as an example, but, and it will show you where you need to target your time. That's especially important if you're working with sales teams, actually, because sometimes they'll have a cluster of connections in one account, but not in other accounts. So it gives them some goals to head for. So, right, we've got some other questions as well, but I'm going to, hey, Tim, hello. Oh, Tim Williams is on. Hello. Oh,
Hi,
look
Tim.
at this. I'm gonna pick this question up. What are your thoughts on using thought leadership ads on LinkedIn? Any thoughts on that? While I try and find a pen because my pen's run out.
Thank you for the question. So what are your thoughts on using thought leadership ads on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
So I'm not. So is this as in running paid social?
Yeah,
ads?
because there's a new feature where you can actually elevate employee content and put paid behind that. I don't know if IBM, that's probably not in your wheelhouse, to be honest, but is that something? Have you got any thoughts on that? Or
yeah, I haven't. That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about that. So no, I need to go and learn more about this the feature. But so if it's kind of boosting employees' content. Yeah, I'm trying to think of examples where we may have done that in IBM.
Well, don't worry, because we have tried that, haven't we, Justina? I can see Justina's on, and I'm not going to ask you a question, Justina, just yet, because I've got a load of questions down here. We have done that, and I bet if it, maybe scratch around and find our results, but it did really work actually when we did that. So elevating employee content on the thought leadership ad is good.
Yeah,
it works.
And if anyone has a point of view on this, please do add it in the chat. I'd love to learn more around this. I haven't personally been involved in a campaign where we've done that, but what we do something similar where we do focus on CX a lot. So to support our employees with their content and reach, IBM's LinkedIn account has I don't know the latest now, but more than 15 million followers. And so we try and expose their content to our followers as well by just listening and engaging with their content. So it's not exactly boosting it with ads or budget, but it's they still do get a bit of a boost. And we have some SMEs that will always reach out and kind of say, oh, I'm publishing a post this morning, can you engage with it from the IBM account? Because they do really see an increase in kind of reach and new audiences that they're able to engage with. So kind of similar topic, like we are supporting and helping the employees and sort of helping them increase their reach.
Yeah, Nada, that is brilliant, right? So I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is exactly how employee advocacy should work. So employees, the brand is socially listening, they're recognizing employees, or employees are even raising their hand saying, I'm publishing a post. Can you give me a bit of love on this from the brand channel? What a fabulous thing to do, to then go recognizing your expert content as a brand. That is how to do it.
Yeah, so important. And it's not just listening and engaging with like our clients or external people. We do it, we respond. We do CX so well in IBM. We respond to everything, like people's posts, all positive comments and engagements. And it just shows people we're listening to them as well. Like if we're tagged, if the IBM handle account is tagged, then we'll make the effort to respond and engage.
So there's a really interesting link that you're making here between managing a brand channel on social and not doing that in isolation of the advocacy program. So for those that are listening, maybe not in the IT industry, where employee advocacy may sit in the comms department, or may even
Oh, Sarah, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear you anymore. I think you might have gone on mute by accident. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. I'm not sure what's happening there. Hold on a second. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, that's all right. So something's happened with my microphone, I think. But yeah, I think that is what you've pointed out there, is the connection between brand channel and employee channels, and making sure they talk to each other. Because if employee advocacy is being managed by a different department, maybe employer branding or HR or comms, make sure that you've got that connection to the marketing brand channel. So we've got so many questions. I've got so many questions, but you're all asking questions. I'm not going to get to my questions. Right, I'm going back. Lena, how do you inspire the advocates with content ideas, and how is your program structured? Well, we did talk a little bit about your program structure, didn't we? So I think that's okay. But how do you inspire advocates with content ideas?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think it's important to, we talked about this as well, like sharing best practices, what good looks like. And like, we know, like we manage our social accounts from a, global social perspective. And we often, again, really close to the data and understanding what works, what doesn't. And so I think it's really important to share those key learnings and insights with our employees. So like when we do the training and coaching and enablement, we'll always talk about best practices and what works. And I think also in terms of content, so it's really important to be selective with like what content or campaigns that are important to us and like what we want our employees to amplify and share. So being really clear on that. And so it's kind of like bringing it all together. What are the 2 to 3 things that you want employees to do? Where is our focus? So we have like social kits for our campaigns, where it just summarizes like the campaign, the kind of suggested copy and hashtag tag links, like just put the social assets that they can use. There are various programs across IBM globally, all managed slightly differently, but there are newsletters that go out weekly or bi-weekly. There are Slack channels to communicate with employee advocates, but there isn't kind of like the right or wrong. I think it just depends on what works for every market and region and country. As long as you're able to communicate with your employees, be able to encourage them to participate and get involved, then yeah, hopefully I've answered the question. I'm not sure if I have. And then I think
you did. No, I think you did. And also, I think to add to that, actually, you inspired me to think about formats and content performance. And And you talked a lot about helping employees really understand the performance and how to track their own performance. You can also do that at an employee advocacy level as well. So you can start to dig behind the dashboards to really understand what kind of content drove clicks, what kind of content drove impressions, what did employees prefer to share, but what kind of content did the employees network engage most with? And you will find they are different. Okay, so you'll see, if you start to get under the hood of the dashboards and really understand how your advocacy programs work, and that will tell you a lot as well. But actually getting employees to do that is a good idea too. So yeah, there's a bit of a conversation going on here. I can't keep up with everybody. And you're all, my question please above. Right, hold on, I'm going back up. 1 second. Is there an IBM advocacy program at IBM Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, great question. So we do have an employee advocacy program in Saudi. So we have a view of like our top most influential individuals in the Middle East and Africa, including Saudi Arabia. The IBMers in Saudi actually they do such a good job on social. I think they just get it. They spend a lot of time on social media. Again, another example I was at an event, I think Saudi last year, and I was kind of leading social strategy for this event, and in the office had only just met all these employees in the IBM office, and they'd come up to me and be like, "We heard your social strategy. You're promoting this event that's coming up this week. Like, when is the post going out?" And that's just incredible. I've never had my employees kind of follow up and chase me on like when the content is going to be available so that they can retweet it and amplify it, which is just incredible. And then there's a Slack channel and kind of a program in place to encourage them to get social. They celebrated National Saudi Day the other day, and again they just get behind everything. And yeah, so there is a great employee advocacy program in Saudi.
So actually, is that the same event that you did the TikTok video for, Nada?
Yes, that's it.
So I'm going to ask you about that, because I think asking employees to amplify content is one thing, but I'm a big believer that employees will eventually become content creators in their own right. And actually brands need to be ready for that. They need to be enabling their employees to be able to do that. And your TikTok video was a really interesting one. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and what your view is on employee generated content?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for mentioning that. Actually, I really enjoyed filming this TikTok video. So as I mentioned, I had the pleasure of leading the social strategy for Think Riyadh, which took place last year in October. And as soon as like my team, my colleagues found out that I'll be flying over to support with the event and the social strategy, they suggested that I like just film and capture everything on my phone, and then we could potentially turn this into a TikTok video. So everyone was excited about this event. It was the first time that we have, I think, Riyadh event in Saudi, and I think people were just curious about like behind the scenes. We had some pretty big VIP guests at the event. Our CEO was there as well, and so I did exactly that. So from the moment I left my house to go to the airport, just captured footage on my phone, on my iPhone. And then when I got back, I pulled together like a script based on like the key moments, key highlights based on the content that I filmed. And then I recorded a voiceover. And then I had some support from my colleagues to stitch it together into a TikTok video, and then asked for approval. So reached out to our leadership team to get approval for it to go out. Explain that we're just experimenting here, and this is to host it on the official IBM TikTok channel, and then got approval from our VIP guests as well. They approved it. They were happy for the content to go out, and then we published it. And it was promoting the TikTok video on my LinkedIn account was probably one of my best performing posts. Really resonated with my audience and followers, and also on the IBM account, like drove over 5,000 views, and above our kind of like benchmark for engagement rate. But it really was one of those things that I thought, even if it doesn't do well, let's take the risk. I'm not afraid of failing. I think we need to experiment more. And we just went for it. So I'm glad that it did resonate, it did perform well. But also it's a really good example of something that is like low effort, kind of low cost. Like I just filmed everything on my phone, and it wasn't like high production, high quality film or anything like that. And I think as long as like you start with your audience first, so with that, we knew this was something that our audience on TikTok would potentially be interested in seeing, like behind the scenes at this event in Saudi that IBM's running. And that was it. So it was like authentic content, started with the audience. And so, yeah, it didn't cost anything and was low effort. And it did really well. But I also really believe in like leading by example. And I think we work in social media, like we've got to be on the platforms, experimenting ourselves. And even if it fails and it doesn't perform, we'll learn from it. And actually that's when we learn and grow the most. So yeah.
Great attitude. Great attitude. Yeah, I was going to, there's so many things. Where are we at on time? Because I just want to, right. I'm going to ask some more questions. So let's have a look. Hi, Sandy. So Sandy's on as well. Dan, hopefully you can hear me now, but my main speaker's gone. So, okay, Helen, what do you think about an EA program participants being obliged to share company pages? That's an interesting one. So I guess that's, sort of an expectation and an ask of employees to share content. What's your feeling around that?
I don't know about being obliged to share. I think they need to want to do it, and I think nothing should be forced. So they yes, we as part of our employee advocacy program will make it easy and simple for people to find the content, the latest news, however way we want to communicate it, whether it's a newsletter or an email or a Slack message. But then I think it really is up to the employee to choose what they want to share. Like, I don't think anything should be forced. It needs to be authentically, their own voice, and they want to talk about it. And it's not just about resharing content as well. Like, where we see the best performing content is when they're giving their own opinion, they're sharing their point of view, their perspective and their experience. So I don't think it should be forced. But also I think if the content is really great, then I think employees will share it. So I also sometimes think it needs to be better quality. It needs to really be social first. It needs to be incredible content that employees feel proud about and want to share it, and that's how I'm an employee myself. And, I'll only share something if I think it is good enough and if it's going to resonate with my followers and audience.
Yeah. And actually on that note, interestingly, we've seen with some employee advocacy programs, the content that performs the best is content that's been put into the platform either by their peers, so employee contributed content, or employee created content. Peers love sharing peer content, peer created content. Yeah. I'm going to come back to that employee generated content because you created the TikTok video. What's your view on, encouraging employees to just go that step further? I mean, one thing is sharing and having a brand and giving them the tools to make it easy. But what about encouraging them and enabling them to create their own content? Do you do that at IBM, that middle layer, that SME layer of your pyramid?
Yeah, I think we'd be supportive, and then there are a few examples of IBMers who do create their own content and do such a great job with it. But again, I think the reason it performs so well is because it's like coming from them and it's authentic and they understand social media. They're dedicating the time to create the content. So we would encourage IBMers. I think we've obviously got kind of social computing guidelines in place. As long as they follow the social computing guidelines, and they're comfortable on social media, so again, it's not forced, then we would encourage it. We'd want so many benefits, obviously, on why social media is important and thought leadership. And so we'd want them to position themselves as thought leaders. We'd want them to help us increase our awareness and consideration, brand relevance. And so, lots of benefits, really important to communicate why we'd encourage them to get social, but also while still sharing kind of like our social computing guidelines. And as long as they stick to those, they're good to really become influencers themselves. So we'd love to see that.
Yeah, I love how IBM does this, because you're just so encouraging of your employees and letting them go and letting them be free and giving them the full backing of the brand to build their own brand around topics that they care about. So, Donna shared your TikTok video. I bet everybody's been watching that instead of listening to us. Everyone said, come back to us. And if you're listening to the podcast, you have to go in on the chat and find it. Here's another one here. Apart from helping employees with ideas, does it help if you enable or project your employees as thought leaders in tech? at a brand level to get their interest up to be a social advocate. Okay, so I think this is touching on employees as influencers. And you did talk a little bit about that, didn't you? So helping employees with ideas, does it help if you get them to be more thought leaders and get in and encourage that?
Yeah, so I think is the question more about how do we help them support the brand and get their content interest up to be a social advocate. I think we spoke about this. So I think we'd welcome and be open to ideas on content, and we get submissions all the time from employees actually, and a lot of our content on our own social channels that performs really well is where it's like kind of we're co-created content with our advocates or with external influencers, and like sort of involving them in our content strategy. So I would say that would help to enable and to kind of be open to including them in our social strategy.
Yeah, and actually there's a bit that you touched on there that I know you and Ryan Bars at IBM do really well, which is the influencer activation. So, and you've touched a little bit on co-creating. So when employees get so influential, I say so, it sounds like they're Instagram influencers, but when they've built their influence and their eminence in a strong area of expertise, then what you start to do is you start to align them to external influencers, and the IBM brand helps facilitate co-creation of content. I mean, that is just such a wonderful example about how you take your top influencers, employee influencers, and just grow them further by connecting a personal relationship with external influencers and co-creating content. I mean, employees must love that. Influencers must love that.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And there's benefits to then like the brand, like to everybody, right? The brand, because we're creating thought leadership content and it's engaging. Like the best performing content we do create often does involve like our SMEs, our subject matter experts, and external influencers. And then at the same time, we're reaching like new and diverse audiences through the external influencers that we work with and content creators. But at the same time, like it really helps our employees build their personal brand as well, and like really position themselves as thought leaders and experts. I actually think one of the challenges we have is, and this is probably one of the challenges we faced, is trying to pitch this and explain this to some of our employees. And I think some of them, so it's just like takes time to kind of explain the benefits, what's in it for them, and finding the time, or for them to find the time to dedicate to filming and meeting external influencers. But massive benefits there. And that's the best kind of content that we create when we do co-create content with influencers, is when the IBM is involved and features in the interview or podcast or YouTube discussion.
Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. And I think because a lot of the time we do get about questions around incentivizing and how do you reward and recognize employee advocates. And I think that's like off the charts. When you get to that level of influence, that's the way you kind of reward and recognize. But are there any other there was something you said at our event in May, which I loved. You tied it into the Blue Points program at IBM.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was our Let's Create campaign. So really proud of Let's Create. So Let's Create was our new brand platform that we launched a couple of years ago, where we reintroduced ourselves to the world, like who we are and what we do. And it's a big part of our marketing campaign was obviously the employer advocacy strategy. And we basically came up with like 2 to 3 really simple actions that we wanted IBMers to take to get behind the campaign and kind of show their pride and talk about the new brand platform. And as part of that, we did incentivize, we did have a program where we incentivized IBMers to get involved, to encourage participation. And we ended up having like thousands of IBMers participate. I'm just getting my notes here. Thousands of IBMers to participate, like 500,000 views on the content, 300,000 engagements. So, and that was just on LinkedIn and like on launch day. So content performed really well, really proud of the results that we got out of it. And really, I think a big part of why it was so successful was the employee advocacy strategy and getting IBMers behind the campaign and to show their pride and talk about the new content and the new campaign.
Yeah. And did you reward blue points then? Or I don't know if I said that right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so this is like a program that we have internally. And yeah, I think it was for like the first 500 IBMers that get involved. And so that just really encouraged participation. So yeah, we had thousands of people participate in the social contest. I do think, we're doing a lot more around incentivizing, and I think it does work. And I think we work closely with the comms team on that, and it just gets people interested, and it's just something else that might encourage them to take part. Because I've always been kind of not sure about incentives and gamification, and but I think as long as it's like authentic and they want to participate and get involved, then yeah, I think it's great for a campaign like this.
Yeah, and you've got to gamify the right things, haven't you? Because if you start incentivizing around number of shares, you're just going to get a lot of noise that's not driving any impact or results. And also aligning your incentives to the right level. So just getting people on the program, just send them a laptop sticker or a little, piece of swag for their desk, or that they're part of something, a community. And then you can scale those rewards against, maturity levels right up to your influencers, like you've just mentioned, and connecting them with external influencers. The rewards don't necessarily have to be iPads and Amazon vouchers. It's definitely,
Yeah, and even like in some cases, like just even like a spotlight. So what we have in the social league program, that's like kind of the middle tier of our top about 200 most influential IBMers in the company. There'll be like a weekly newsletter that goes out, and then we'll put the spotlight on the IBMer. So actually, the people in the program are the ones where we're highlighting their content and talk about why their content is doing really well. And so it encourages others in the program to share their colleagues' content as well, increases awareness of it. We're helping them with the reach. But that motivates them, right? And it goes back to the example I gave earlier about our kind of general manager in EMEA, and how we just letting them know that their content performed really well for this campaign, above our benchmarks, and that encourages them to keep going. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and that reminds me of Danielle Guzman from Marsh McLellan. I don't know if she's on today, but she also mentioned at our event, actually, because she said that quite often every quarter they'll feature an employee story in the town hall call. So their leadership team will call out employees that are doing amazing content on platforms like LinkedIn, and they're just, what a great way. Just visibility and recognition goes a long way. Right, we're nearly up on time. We are up on time. Nada, I've got two questions. I'm going to just ask this one at the end here. I haven't read it. To your point around reaching diverse audiences, have you got any insights or stats as to how employee advocacy has helped to attract and retain or engage with a wider, more diverse pool of talent? Well, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think we had a similar one at the event as well. Insights or stats as to how employee advocacy has helped attract and retain or engage with a wider, more diverse pool of talent. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of the stories. I think I remember, and again through like the CX work that we're doing, and I remember there was somebody who applied for IBM because they kind of they saw our content on social media and saw how IBM was so involved in the CX, and I don't know if I'm really answering the question, but I think I think because of like that motivated them to apply for the job and join IBM, and so something like that. So I remember that a couple of years ago. So kind of linked to attracting talent, which is amazing. Yeah. So like, and then they said, and they did like this post. I remember this post on LinkedIn saying like, I applied to IBM because of like, I can see they're engaging on social media and their content. And so I think it does. We do have like the talent and HR marketing teams that are focused on, obviously attracting talent and on social media, whereas kind of my focus in my role is more around raising awareness and consideration of like our brand relevancy, our products and solutions.
Yeah, no, I love that. And actually, I remember there was a job fight study. I can't remember exactly the numbers, but it did say employee referred candidates to an organization. They onboard faster, they stay longer, they get engaged faster, and they get more productive quicker as well. So employee advocacy can massively help the employer brand, massively. Right. Oh, there is a cheeky question. Helen, I'm curious, so I'm going to ask that one too. Is X finished for EA? I watch your view on that. I'm putting you on the spot, Nada. You know, on Twitter, X. You know, what's your view? Or do you not have an opinion?
Are still no. We are still on X. From our branded perspective, kind of everything is like business as usual. If our audience are there, we're there. So nothing is kind of like changed for us right now. But the team are keeping a close eye on things and working closely with our kind of reps at X on how things progress. But right now, yeah, business as usual. We're still on there. Most of our employees, I have to say, are on LinkedIn more than they are on X. So yeah, LinkedIn is probably the primary platform.
Right, I've got one final question now. I'm going to wrap it up because
Sure.
you've been absolutely brilliant, Nada. So many things. I've written so many notes down. I do all the time, and I've got piles of notes that I'm thinking I must write a blog about this or something. What's the one piece of advice? One piece of advice that you'd give to anybody who's listening on the podcast or anybody who's still watching us today on looking to implement or maybe relaunch their advocacy program? Maybe it's just gone a bit stagnant and they're like, oh, how do I give this to out? Is there anything you would give? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a couple of things. So really, really quickly, I think one, it's important to understand the different personas and like meet people where they are. Two, I think partnership is really key. So like lean into your comms marketing colleagues to, where I've seen it, when I've seen the most successful employee advocacy programs where we've come together, like join forces. And then the third key learning, and I think probably most important, is like just less is more, because I feel like with our employee advocacy programs, there's just so much noise, it's overwhelming. We're asking too much of our employees, and I think we've got to be selective with what we want them to do. So whether that's like the newsletter that goes out every week, what are the 2 to 3 pieces of like news or content or campaigns we want them to get behind? So less is more, and yeah, just make it easy lift for them to get involved.
Fabulous. Absolutely brilliant. Nada, thank you so much. And please, everyone watching, listening, please connect with Nada. I'm sure she'll welcome the opportunity to connect with you and answer any further questions. But yeah, and follow Nada's content. It's brilliant. She's really good. So
thank you so much.
That's all right. Thank you, everyone, for your comments today, the conversations, the side conversations that I wasn't part of, but you're all having a chat on your own. Absolutely brilliant. I love it when that happens. But yeah, thanks for coming, and thank you, Nada, for your time. Brilliant.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, and next week, what are we doing next week? Ashley Faust, actually, from Atlassian. So really looking for that, forward to that one, and how to be a thought leader. So that one will be a good one. So taking a bit of your influencer and how you create thought leaders through employees. So right, bye for now, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.